screen here. Forgive me, I do not know how to work Zoom. I'll get there. Here we go.
That was a team's dig, by the way. Just saying
that. Okay, there we are. I don't need to see my face, but I do want to see the chat. Sorry, guys, give me just 1 second. Where's the chat?
It should be down at the bottom.
Yeah, you'll have like a small bar, right? That went for once you started sharing. If you get that bar to pop back up.
Oh, I see it.
Then you hit the 3 dots and you'll usually see the chat.
Chat, Alt H. It's hiding somewhere on my screen. Okay, just holler at me if we need things. I have a whole list of links and I will drop them in the chat, but clearly I'm not, oh, there we go. I just found it. So this is a presentation about how today is my first day using a computer. Really happy to be here. I finally found the chat, so that's great. And I'll get started. Okay, so thank you so much, you guys, for having me. It is great to be here. I am going to talk today about certifications at Microsoft. The main cert that we're going to cover is, of course, the DA100, which is the data analyst role-based certification, but we are also going to talk about other data platform certifications, and we'll cover some of the Power Platform certifications as well. So just a little bit about me. I currently work at Microsoft. I work on the worldwide learning team, and I have the absolute pleasure of creating the content for the courses that are taught related to this certification. So I am very, very new. So I'm sure there are people on the call that know more than I do. And I would definitely encourage you all, if you have recently taken a certification, or I know we have a few Microsoft folks on the line, so please feel free to jump in if there is anything that I have missed. I think the most important fact about myself that you all need to know is that in the pre-COVID times, I started doing flying trapeze as a hobby. And that is the most interesting fact about me that's on this slide. What are we going to talk about today? This is going to be really simple. We're going to talk about the benefits of certification. So the why should you get certified? We're going to talk about what certifications are even out there and how do you find the path? How do you manage your way through it? And then we're going to talk about how to get and how to stay certified, because staying certified is relatively new in the way that it's been rolled out. And so we'll go over that as well. And I am a talker, so if anyone has a question, please feel free, jump in. Okay, so the first thing that I wanted to talk about is just, why are we talking certifications? Why should you get certified? And the main thing that I wanted to just throw out there is that this is not a sales pitch. If you are interested in becoming certified, I highly recommend it. And I would love to hear from other folks in the chat. If you are certified, I'd love to hear maybe how it did or did not benefit you. But this is not a sales pitch. So what I want you to understand is the way that it can help you in your career. And also, if you want to go through the learning materials, but you don't want to pay for the certification, that's okay too. And that'll help, reinforce the skills that you do have, and help you, understand if maybe you want to do the cert or not. Number one Shannon fan is certified. So I would love to see if you can just drop into the chat if you hold the DA100 certification, and just drop like a yes or something in there. I'm curious to know how many people on the line have the certification that we're going to be talking about, because I would love to hear more about your experience. And I'll keep talking while we're doing this, but I'll just keep an eye on the chat as it's coming in. All right, so back to the point, why should you get certified? So experience is really great. And that is how, we all get our jobs based on our past work experience. But how do you demonstrate your knowledge and skills to future employers or to colleagues? And that is potentially with certification. So, we're demonstrating that we're proficient in the specific skills that are associated with the recognized industry roles. So it'll help you be recognized at your own work. It can potentially help you get rewarded in terms of salary. It can help you get promoted or get hired. And then the one that really resonates with me is this satisfaction. When I initially took the original Power BI certification, the main thing that happened to me was I was like, oh, I actually do have these skills. You always doubt yourself and you wonder how much you really know, but doing something like taking a certification for me, it was really, it just helped reinforce that my skills are valuable and that I do have them. So we've got quite a few folks on the line that are certified. So if you already have this certification, as I continue to go through the presentation, if you want to drop little nuggets of wisdom into the chat, that would be much appreciated because I am just one perspective. So that would be great. I just wanted to share with you really quickly, going back to the why should you get certified? This is some survey data from the Value of IT certification, a Pearson VUE survey that was done in 2018. And there were around 10,000 IT professionals that responded. And I think, what I was just mentioning about self-satisfaction, we've got going on here, 67% of folks had a greater self-confidence in their own abilities. Understanding that the knowledge that you have is transferable to real work situations. Maybe this is something that you're learning, but you haven't had a chance to implement yet. Again, reinforcing that you can use it. Increased job satisfaction. And then this one right here, money talks, right? And so a salary increase helps me feel more satisfied. And in my own experience, when I became certified, it really opened up a lot of job prospects for me. One thing that I've noticed, and I don't know if you guys have noticed this as well, but once you list these certifications on your LinkedIn profile, people start reaching out to you because there are a lot of people that need Power BI expertise right now. It's blowing up in the industry, and there aren't a lot of people that are true experts in it. So I think that is something interesting to note as well. Finally, just going back to the money piece, because this is important. We do have to feed our families. So we have here just looking at the percent of increase in salary. And so what you can see, I just wanted to show tangibly that there is an actual noted increase with becoming certified, increase in salary. Okay, so that's it. That's the why. So now we're going to jump into like what are my options? So as you may know, there are so many different ways that you can become certified. And, there are data analysts role-based certifications through a lot of different companies. But here at Microsoft right now, the data analyst role-based certification is really focusing in on Power BI. Many of you may have noticed in the past that there were two exams. One was essentially Power Query and Power Pivot in Excel. And then the second exam was Power BI. In this iteration, the DA for more pineapple pizza. In this iteration, the data analyst certification is focused solely on Power BI. And I would imagine that as the technology changes, the exam will adapt and we may see that expand to more technology. But what I also wanted to show you, and again, I can drop this link back in the chat I don't know if when you join, if you can scroll up in the chat or how that works on Zoom. But all of these here are links to these different certifications. And I just wanted to mention what they are and how you know how to navigate through these options. So the first thing I want to mention is that we all on the line are data people. And with this huge increase in the demand for data and data use, the demand for database jobs is really high. And so what we've done kind of at Microsoft and with the certifications is that there are really 4 main kind of roles that we want people to put themselves into. And maybe you, I'm sorry, I'm getting distracted by the chat. Maybe you fit into more than one role, and that is amazing. That's great. But maybe you don't. So the 4 roles that I wanted to highlight are where we're starting here. So this is our data analyst. And, you know, right now it's using Power BI, but it may expand to other technologies in the future. We've got our database administrator exam. So that's our second role. We then have our data engineers, and then finally our data scientists or our AI engineers. So those are the exams that are covered in Microsoft's data and AI portfolio. And if you're interested in any of them, I just want to show you a little bit of how they work. So I'm going to jump into the link for the DA.
Hey, Shannon.
Yeah.
I just wanted to, for like anybody who's unfamiliar with the exams, I don't know if there are any on the call at all, but if this is your first time seeing like the number system associated with the exams, there isn't no real direct correlation between the number and the exam level. For example, a 100 level exam can be much more difficult than a 900 level exam, which is typically a fundamentals exam. So I just wanted to clarify that. So if you see a 100, it doesn't mean it's the starter. The 900 doesn't mean it's the top of the totem pole or the top of the pyramid.
Thank you, Casey. That's so important. Someone was asking me in the past, you know, does a 900 mean that you are, you know, an absolute expert? And so let's just take a quick peek at the landscape here. And Casey was just mentioning these 900 level exams. So what these are at present are the fundamental exams. I would imagine that they've changed over time. I really don't know, to be honest. But so don't let the numbers throw you off. I will drop this link into the chat because I find this to be a pretty useful diagram. If you are looking for yourself to become certified, or you want folks at your office to look into what certification might be right for them, perhaps you are looking to become a Microsoft Silver or Gold partner, certifications are a part of that. So I find this diagram to be really helpful. So I just dropped that into the chat, and thank you. That was perfectly timed. So I'm just going to jump into, I just went through one of those links that I pulled from the deck, and I just wanted to show you what to expect when you get into these landing pages for the exam. And this should hopefully demystify some of this. When I started looking into what are all the different certifications I could hold, I got a little bit overwhelmed because there's a lot going on. But if you just jump to the exam page itself, so this is, okay, step 2. Step 1 is you've determined which role base are you interested in, right? And so here, this is the data analyst. If you open up the web page, it'll take you to, there are a number of different links in here, but I like to scroll down. And the first place I like to visit here is this skills measured. And let me just drop this also into the chat in case people want to follow along. But here, what you can see in the skills measured is, this is what we're going over in the exam. Okay, so we are preparing and modeling data, we're visualizing data, we're doing analysis, and we're deploying and maintaining deliverables. Now, these could mean different things to different people, so let's take a look at what these mean. Now, if you are studying for the exam, I'm getting a little out of control with my Zoom here. If you are studying for the exam, I would highly recommend that you take a look for any exam that you're looking into. Take a look at these skills measured guidelines. And what you can do is you'll see that for each section that is mentioned on the previous page, there are bullet points of what it is that you need to know. So these are the things that a group of experts define are important when you think about what a data analyst needs to do to prepare data in Power BI. And if you're studying, I like to just go through, I like to check them off, make sure I'm familiar with each of them, and then move on to the next. So this is not the end all be all, but it's a great place to start. And I'm going to just jump back into the deck quickly. Does anybody have any questions?
Shannon, did you see what Michelle put in the chat?
Yes. Okay, so Michelle, Michelle dropped in the chat that the exam content is being updated the day before she takes the exam, which sounds really scary. I need to do a little bit of research here. I don't know what that means, but let me get an answer for you because this is really important. I can't imagine that they're changing the actual rollout of the exam on that day because you would not have had time to prepare for it. One other thing, Alex just dropped in the chat that it won't be an overhaul. These exams are regularly maintained and they're maintained on a monthly basis. So you will see that those skills outlines every 2 months are updated. And then occasionally the vendors who create the exams, they cycle through different exam questions, they get reviewed and they're deemed either in or out of scope and appropriate or not appropriate. So a lot of thought goes into them, but there typically aren't like brand new features or features that are in preview will not be on the exam. So just hopefully that puts you at ease a little bit. But Michelle, I am going to get you some answers on that because that's a good question that I don't know the answer to. Are there any other questions? Okay, let us carry on. Oh, one other thing I wanted to talk to this slide is just to talk about how do you understand what all of this content is and where it is. So one thing that Microsoft has done of late, which has been pretty great, is that they've really made a big investment into this Learn platform. So if you just go to learn.microsoft.com, you will land here. You will have to log in and you will land here and you'll be able to explore all the content. But the content can be a little bit overwhelming. So if you search, for example, simply for Power BI, what you will see here is, okay, wow, there are 790 results for Power BI here. That can be a little overwhelming. So the place that I like to start when I'm looking for what content is going to be on the exam is I always start with this certification. And one thing that you'll see here, if you just scroll a little bit past where we had the exam skills outline here, if you just keep scrolling, you're going to see these learning paths. So I want to just explain sort of how they're organized to make it make sense. So the top level kind of subject where you're going to get started. So like getting data. Okay, that is a learning path. And then within the learning paths, there are modules. So this learning path contains 2 modules. Okay, so if you work your way through the modules, what you will then see is that there are, you page through the different lessons, and then at the end of each module, there is a knowledge check. And these questions may be helpful. You may find them easy, you may not, but the thing that I like about them is that when you select answers, I'm not even looking at what I'm looking at here, but it'll tell you when you have the answers wrong, and it'll explain to you why you have the answers wrong. So if you're looking at like, okay, just a very baseline, I want to quiz myself on some of this stuff, Learn is the place to go. There are knowledge checks at the end of every module. So that's that. And Alex dropped a link into the chat for Power BI specific Learn modules. I'm assuming that's what that is. Let's follow it. Aha. So this is the landing page for Power BI training. And I actually have never looked at this before. So thanks, Alex. And here you'll see all of the different learning paths. One just quick thing to note about these learning paths, and this is aside from the certification, but there are new learning paths being developed every day. And you may find, like, I don't know, if you do a web search for Power BI admin, new learning paths have just been released for that. That's just an example, but you will find that the new learning paths pop up on here, and then they're just additional really high quality resources for you to be able to use. The idea is that anything within the learning path for the certification, most of the topics that are going to be on the certification exam are covered. But it's not 100% coverage. So I would say go through those as a starting point and then go back to that outline and see what else it is that you still need to go through. Alrighty, and then just one quick note that I wanted to mention. I know since a number of you on the line have already done the DA100 exam, you may be interested in some of these other certs. So the AI100, this Azure AI Engineer Associate, has been retired, and that one has been replaced with the other one with the same name, which is AI102, Azure AI Engineer Associate. And then the 2 Data Engineer Associate exams, those have been combined into one, and those are now DP203. So this can also lead to the confusion. I probably shouldn't even included these on the slide, but you can still take these exams up until the end of June, and that is when they will retire and only the new exams will be available to take. Now, speaking of other exams that you can take, I keep losing my mouse. I'll come back to that slide. I want to talk a little bit about the Power Platform certifications. So as we all know, I mean, this is a Power BI user group. I'm sure many of us have dabbled in the Power Platform, whether that's the Power Automate visual in Power BI, or if you're building Power Apps or whatever it is that you're using on the Power Platform. I would definitely recommend taking a look at these certifications as well. The Power Platform certifications do include some Power BI information, especially PL 100 and PL 200. So the Power Platform App Maker and the Power Platform Functional Consultant. If there is anyone on the line who is like, what is this Power Platform thing? In a nutshell, Power Platform is Microsoft's low code, no code development platform. Those words are subjective, I think, but that is where we are able to collect data using Power Apps, building our own applications. We are able to, of course, analyze data using Power BI. We can do task automation using Power Automate. There are really intelligent chatbots using Power Virtual Agents. And then there is a 5th one that I'm missing. If anyone, isn't there a 5th one in the Power Platform? One thing I want to bring to all of our attention that Chewy put in the, thank you, Power Virtual Agents. Chewy put in the chat is this low code, no code in quotes. I think you'll see this when you're working with any BI software or really any software at all. There is this huge divide of like, okay, well, you could potentially use Power BI without doing any manipulation in Power Query, so using no M. And I guess technically you could also not use any DAX, and you could create useful reports. You could. Is it the best use of the software? Maybe not. Is it going to benefit you to know the code? Yes, of course. And I would argue, as a Power Apps user myself, there was a lot more code involved in Power Apps than I expected, but you know, now I'm glad that I know it, and now it's become its own formula language according to Microsoft, and there we go. And I agree, Chewy, that we should be honest for sure. But okay, so going back to like the bread and butter of why are we here? What are we doing? So we are really just talking about this data analyst role-based certification. This is for people who have used Power BI as an analyst and also have a working knowledge of, you know, admin and governance. Now, If you have never used Power BI before, but you know this is something you want to learn, this certification is still for you. Within the learning material on the Learn platform, we have virtual machines. Sorry, it's the end of the day. My brain is like powering down, but we have virtual machines where you can complete the labs in a virtual environment and you can get hands-on practice with the tools. So I do not think that, you know, you not having used this in a work setting is a showstopper. I absolutely think that you can and will still succeed, but just note that this certification it's not an intro level certification. It's for people who are using the tool. And the reason for that is that we want people to be able to demonstrate their expertise. We want this certification to mean something. So again, we already kind of went over this, but we're talking about data prep. We're talking about data modeling. We're talking about data viz a little bit. We're talking about more advanced analysis that you can do inside of Power BI. And then this one always kind of throws people. We're talking about deploying and maintaining deliverables all the way through admin and governance. This one in particular, if your day job is as an analyst, hands-on, you're deep in the data, you're working with it, and you're publishing reports, you may want to take an extra look at this fifth bullet and
Hello?
I'm here,
Shannon, I
Regina.
think your
in
screen.
admin.
There you go.
Yeah, Shannon, we lost you for about 10 seconds.
Sorry, my internet. The nation's capital has terrible internet. I don't know where I stopped, but I think the point I wanted to make was just with this deploy and maintain deliverables bullet at the bottom here. If this is not something that is typically a part of your day job, I would definitely recommend going through the Learn modules, reading through the documentation, because those questions will throw you if it's something that you haven't seen before. Houston, we have a problem. You guys are amazing. Okay, so we've gone through the, you know, why should I get certified? We've gone through the, like, what are all of these strangely numbered things? And now I think this is the most important part of this whole session. And I would love for people to unmute and let's have a discussion, because I'd really like to know, you know, what were your top tips for getting certified? The journey is a little bit different for everyone. And it's also going to be different whether you're taking the exam in a testing center versus taking it at home. But I'm going to go through this kind of how to get certified, and then we'll go through more specifics on the next slide. So the first thing, and we've already mentioned this, is to identify your target role. The next thing is to use those learning paths on Learn. The whole reason that they were developed is to help you pass your certification test. And we look at metrics. So we're really committed to making sure that that content is good. So use Learn. The next one that I wanted to mention is to use practice exams. I get like the test anxiety. I get really nervous and I have a hard time, you know, picturing what the tests would be that are on the exam. So I'm going to just drop a couple of resources into the chat. The first one is a website called Learn Data Insights. This is a friend of the community, Rishi Sapra. He is an MVP, and he developed this whole application for learning not only Power BI, there are other technologies on there. You do have to sign up for an account, but it is free, and you get, I believe it's 10 free quiz questions a day. So if you want to just practice your knowledge, it's completely free. And one thing that's really interesting about the way that Rishi runs it is that he keeps a really close eye on how all of the questions are faring with the users, so that he can tell, you know, is this a good question or not? Is this actually useful? So that is a really great one to check out. Oh, thank you, Sheila. So times 5 quizzes. So you get 50 total questions for free, which is great. The next thing that I wanted to point out, if you are even more interested in doing practice questions, there is a resource called Measure Up. And Measure Up is a paid resource. So if you are not interested in paying money, tune me out right now. I'm totally cool with that. But what I can say about these paid resources, and there are actually 2 different ones that I'm going to put into the chat. If you're interested in seeing like really a very similar structure of the questions that are going to be on the exam, I have used one of these in the past and the questions are quite similar. So these are a really good resource if the questions and the format stresses you out. I would recommend taking a look at those. The next thing I wanted to point out is to use community resources. This community, you all seem really plugged in, so I don't even think this is something that I have to mention. But there are tons of us out there that want to see each other certified and want to help each other. And if you run across something that's confusing or it doesn't make sense, or maybe there even is an issue, an error in the documentation, the learn content, let us know, reach out to somebody. We're here to help each other succeed. That's the whole point of all of this. I just dropped the link in the chat to a friend of ours, Priscilla Camp. She recently wrote a blog back in January, just tips to help you succeed. And it's got a lot of stuff in there that, like, you know, we might not ordinarily think about when we think about taking the exam. So she overviews her experience. She's got her tips to succeed. She talks about study groups, online resources. And then this one I think is really interesting. And we're going to talk about this on the next kind of slide of the deck, but the test day preparations. This piece can be really uncomfortable. It's not super accessible if you don't go to a testing center. So we're going to talk through that, but take a look. There are lots of blogs out there. I really love Priscilla's blog. It goes through a lot in detail and it's just really real. So take a look at it. The community is how I've learned everything I know. So I'm a huge proponent for it.
Hey,
And
Shannon,
then finally, yeah.
Hey, can I jump on just one thing? This group, the DFW users group, right? We did do a study group, and I think it helped a bunch of people out as well. I know Michelle went through that, and she's still working on taking her exam. You know, and so for the people on this call that, you know, you're part of the DFW user group, we plan on continuing our lunch series. So if, you know, we're wrapping up, we're doing advanced data modeling in a day. I think we got a couple more weeks in that. But then if we want to do another study group, you know, that would be kind of my 3rd time going through and doing one. It's one I started with the people in my company first. So a study group, like Shannon mentioned, is a great way of doing it. And we got a format, so we try it again. And we use a lot of the YouTube videos in that study group. The way we did is we said, here's a playlist to watch during the week. And then we just discussed what was on there. And we found that to be very, very useful.
That is so awesome. Your user group has so much going on. It's so exciting. Yeah, so I actually have not ever used a study group, but I get so nervous about the exams. I feel like that would really benefit me. So thank you. Anyone else have anything to add about maybe, I don't know, what helped you get certified, or tips that you have, things that you may not think about or that I haven't mentioned?
This is Michelle. I thought that slide that you showed that kind of showed you, if this is where you think you might want to go for your career, these are the best certifications to take. That was really helpful. So thanks for sharing that.
Of course. Of course. And I'll just jump back to that here. Is this the one, Michelle?
I think there was another one.
I'm like, I'll jump back to that. And then I can't.
No, but I forget which one it was, but anyhow, that helped a lot, because I'm kind of at the point of reinventing myself, and I think a couple other people in this group are as well. And so it's nice to know what path to follow as we want to develop and advertise ourselves of this is what I know. And that was helpful.
Good. I'm so glad. Yeah, you know, right now I think it is, the data space is so interesting, and it's become the options are almost limitless as to what we can do. And the thing that I love about it so much is that so many of us come from other industries. We have our expertise in whatever that is, and we're also good with data. And then, okay, well, do you want to be an analyst? Do you want to be a data engineer, move things around? Are you really a data scientist? What really interests you? I don't know. The opportunities are limitless, and the number of posted positions out there for them, I mean, are just huge. We have recruiters reaching out to our user group daily looking for this kind of talent. So if this is something you're interested in, just going back to the community aspect, I think, you know, we are all here to help each other succeed in that.
Hey, Shannon, this is Janet. I'd like to get y'all's advice on something. So my background has been technical management, but I was always in databases, and we were dealing with on-premise. We were transitioning to cloud, or we had a hybrid model. But when I was querying data, it was on-premise SQL Server. And so as I'm transitioning my career, I wanted to get back heavily in the data realm, and I have a DBA experience as well, but we know that's nighttime work is too, 24 hours sometimes. But on the data analyst associate, it recommended that if you to take the Azure fundamentals, and then you guys, you know, if I haven't been dealing in the cloud, which I'm working on right now, and then you guys have mentioned Power Apps. So do you have a recommendation on the order in which I should take those, or if there's some that aren't necessary, or if, say, maybe Power Apps isn't exactly necessary?
Yeah, that is a great question. I am going to put just my 2 cents in, but then I'd love to hear what everyone else thinks. It is recommended that Azure Fundamentals is kind of the baseline course for everyone to come in, but Azure Fundamentals goes over a lot. It's a wide but shallow exam, but it goes over a lot of the different concepts in Azure. I think it's a good to know, but I don't necessarily think it's a need to know. I think if you're already a data person and you understand concepts about data and the difference between on-prem and the cloud, you are ready to start working towards the data analyst associate. There is also the Azure Database Administrator Associate, which has some more of the kind of traditional, what you may associate with the DBA type tasks. It's got T-SQL in that exam. Then when we get into the Power Apps, this is actually a bit of a different direction. And this is kind of a debate that I think the community often has. Power Apps is really supposed to be web application development, but low code. So it's really developing applications for, I mean, whatever it is that you need to develop them for. I personally have only really used it for data collection in the past. But I think if you already have a whole career of working in data, so I think that you would be well positioned to go ahead and start with the data analyst if that's something that you're interested in.
Yeah.
But that I don't want to, like pigeonhole you into that, because that's what I'm like promoting here today. I'd love to hear from other people on the line what their thoughts are.
This isn't necessarily an answer, but kind of a thought of something to look at, like the concept of what used to be called the common data service, and I think now is the multiverse. So, and that's the relational database answer to Power Platform, where you're designing the data model for whether it's Power Apps, Power Automate, Power BI, but I think it's a new concept, so that might be something that you might want to look into as well, rather than going down the rabbit hole of trying to understand and build out Azure environments right away. Take a look at that too, the multiverse.
Casey, is that different from the Dataverse? Because I just got an error message today that something is like, I don't have a Dataverse something or other. I was in Power Automate.
Am I saying the wrong thing? I'm thinking the
No,
wrong
I have no idea. I just thought it was funny because I was screen sharing. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I think I'm saying multiverse when I mean Dataverse. Sorry, it's a branding thing. Hold on, let me just
Marvel fan.
Is it multi?
Yeah. So the names are always changing, but the underlying product remains the same.
Yeah, sorry. It's the Microsoft Dataverse. Sorry, not the multiverse. We're not in Avengers Endgame. Okay, so my bad. Look, yeah, it's the Dataverse, not the multiverse. Going back on mute.
Okay. No, thank you.
This is Regina. I had, I think, the same question as the speaker before. I have a background working with SQL Server, building and modeling databases. And I was wondering, and I'm also working with Power BI. And I was wondering as well, what would be the next step? You know, because they've already phased out, you know, SQL Server.
Yeah, that is a really hard question. I think it depends. It really depends on where you want to go. I mean, I think you, with your knowledge of SQL Server, this DP 300, you could easily take and pass. I think it depends on, you know, if you're getting certified, what is it that you want to continue to do? But I would love to hear from other people on the line because I just am not an expert in this.
Yeah, I think it really depends on where you want to go, but you said they phased out SQL Server.
That I was saying, they at least the testing, the certification. So I don't know if
Okay.
that's if we are to conclude that down the line, you know, we won't see
No,
SQL.
I don't think SQL Server is going anywhere.
Okay.
Like it would take a lot to replace a relational database like that. But as far as looking at like just the kind of in my career, kind of what I have on my roadmap is the data fundamentals, and then the database engineer or admin associate. Kind of those are the next two that I have coming up. And that's just to advance, you know, to kind of prove my skills as a data analyst and to prove my skills with SQL and database design. So I would say that just from my recommendation, if you have, you know, SQL experience and whatnot, then those two will probably, especially if you have analyst experience as well, those two would probably be good just to certify that you know what you know that it's not just a title that you have, that
that's
you also have a certification that goes along with it.
So that's the DP 203.
No, I think that's probably a little bit further on.
Okay.
I would look at the DP 900, which is just data fundamentals,
DP.
and then maybe the DP 300.
Okay. Thank you.
Though that's just my 2 cents. So take that for what it's worth.
Yeah, and I would echo everything that Corey just said. Is, you know, SQL Server hasn't gone away. It's just moved to the cloud, right? And it's Azure SQL databases. A lot of what you learned from being an on-prem DBA will transfer, but then a lot of the things that were kind of your nightmares of doing DBA work start going away as well as you move further and further into letting, you know, just Azure run it. So as you learn those type of things, it does transfer over well. And then, you know, if you're looking to get into data, you know, your DBA skills of modeling, right? If you were doing probably third normalization modeling, right? You're gonna have to transfer over more to your star schema modeling, right? A lot of the same concepts, but, you know, a different process, and you know, you come out with a different type of model. But you could transfer a lot of the skills that you have. So if you're looking to move on, always take what you have as your first stepping stone, and then use that to make your leap somewhere else and stretch yourself to get to that next job or open up other opportunities.
Right, because the certifications that kind of just validate that this is what I know are going to be really easy to get. And to be honest, they're kind of ones that we should all just have. Was it I just took the Power BI certification? I've known Power BI for forever, and why did I not take the certification? Just to prove on, at least at some level, that yes, somebody else validates that I know this. And I think that that's what's good about these certifications. And like I said, I've set myself up a roadmap, and most of these are on it, of courses that I'm going to be taking in the next year to 2 years to just validate what I know and then learn new things as well. So.
And thanks, guys. This conversation is so great. And speaking of learning new things, I know that this is a data crowd and I'm a data person as well, but I would say, if you've already done quite a bit on the data path, I would recommend these Power Platform exams. The reason being that I was fortunate enough to have an opportunity to implement them all together. So using Power Apps and Power Automate and Power BI out in the field. And it was such a cool solution, and it's still being used. So I think, if you're in a work environment where you may have the potential to do your own data collection, or, you may have the potential to take it into a different direction, these Power Platform certs are hot right now too. They're a little bit more new than a lot of the data certifications. And there are a lot of people looking for folks with this expertise. So I would say don't rule these out either. But if you are coming in as a data person, I think that advice is pretty solid to start here.
Yeah, thanks for taking that topic.
Of course. I mean, I feel like we all have that question, it's like, where do I even get started with all of this? There's so much, it can be so overwhelming. So it's a great question. Right.
And just to follow that up, it's something that we all struggle with, because this is a relatively new career path, and it's expanding very, very rapidly, and it's changing very, very rapidly. So even people who have been in it for as long as Shannon has, and as long as Kevin has, there's kind of an idea of where it's going, but really what you're trying to do is predict that these are the skills that will be needed coming up, or these are the things that aren't going away. Right? Like, I wouldn't go learn Access right now. But SQL is always going to be a good thing to know, because I don't see relational databases going away. So it's kind of just having an idea of where the market's at right now, and where we think it's going to go. And once again, I think that's probably about all I have to say about it. But
yeah. And just to ride one more thing off of that is, certifications are good, but it also kind of helps you think about where you want to go, because what I have found throughout my long career, we won't talk about how long that is I have found that I'm happier and more successful if I look at retooling, reskilling myself every 2 to 3 years. And really, I might ride off of something for a couple years, but then I always start looking at what is it that I need to learn that's totally different in order to expand myself. But if you don't reskill yourself every couple years in IT, you're going to fall out.
Go ahead.
Sorry, Shannon. I just would add to what Kevin's saying that, with the Microsoft Ignite challenge, I did that, which basically motivated me to sign up for a certification exam. And I feel like, I'm working harder than I've worked probably, in a year pre-pandemic. I'm studying all the time, but it's been a real motivator, and I'm having a lot of fun just kind of sharpening the saw too, kind of to your point, Kevin, of retooling. I had the tools, but some of them weren't very sharp. So it's kind of going back and kind of filling in some gaps, but it's been very motivating, and making new friends along the way. All these connections on this call and others, it's been tremendous. So very motivating.
Awesome. I love to hear that. And Sheila, you just mentioned, was it you that mentioned it, or Michelle? Someone mentioned the Cloud Skills Challenge. which is something I wanted to talk about. So there is an initiative that is run by Microsoft a couple of times a year around their big conferences. And this initiative is actually happening right now. But the prize this time around is not a free exam, unfortunately. But once a year, there is a free exam that is offered. And it's just certain exams. It's not all of the Microsoft exams, but there's a Cloud Skills Challenge going on right now with the Microsoft Business Applications Summit that happened today. And this challenge, the B1 with the data challenge, how it works is you go through the Learn modules, you develop the skills, you take the quizzes. Once you've gone through them, I'm not exactly sure how they select the winner, but the winner of the Cloud Skills Challenge for this go round is going to get a one-on-one conversation with Patrick LeBlanc and Adam Saxton of Guy in a Cube. They are Microsoft employees, but they're also guys in a cube. So if you are learning Power BI and you have not had a chance to check out the Guy in a Cube YouTube channel, I would highly recommend that. And then that might get you pumped to meet these guys and take a look at this challenge. The challenge is free. And then that brings us to another question, which was, how much do these things cost and how do I pay for it? So the exams, unfortunately, are not free. However, a couple of different things. So one, the standard cost is $165. If you're currently working in an analytic role, it will benefit your employer for you to be certified. And I think, man, we could write a whole blog post on, how and why it benefits them to get them to cover the exam. There is also still some COVID-19 exam pricing that is happening out there. So if you have been affected by COVID-19, if you have maybe lost your job or you've been put into a different role that is not what you want to be in, you can take the exam for $15. And but all of these links will route you through to Pearson VUE, who is the official exam provider for the DA100. Does anyone else have any thoughts about cost or getting your employer to pay for this? I see the.
Hi, this is Shopi, and when you say employer to get to pay for this, like what are the reasons which we can use? Like we can convince them to pay for it.
Sure. Yeah, that's a great question. So the number one thing that I think of, depending on the type of organization that you're in, is when organizations have employees that are certified in Microsoft technologies, they are then eligible to become Microsoft partners, which has a whole realm of benefits. I don't actually know what they all are off the top of my head, but the last small consulting firm I worked at, the main way that we worked on becoming a partner was by having our colleagues become certified. But I'd like to hear from the group for folks that have had success getting your employer to cover this or suggesting it to your boss. What kind of argument do you use? Argument isn't the right word, but you know what I mean.
I mean, I didn't have to use much of an argument, so I'm probably not the right person. My company covers any certification that we do. So, and I think most Microsoft-based companies will probably do that because it does go towards like you just said. It kind of depends on your company. Otherwise, it's just it's beneficial, but I don't know how if your company doesn't do a whole lot of it, I don't know how necessarily to phrase it.
One other just thing that I might mention is that a lot of other professional development courses are really pricey. Like for a 4-day course, it's like a couple $1,000. So one thing actually that I've done in the past is I went through and I made a list of all of the different courses and certifications and how much they cost, and then compared it to how much this costs. And this is really a steal. So I don't know if that is an argument that might work for you as well.
Right, and the one other thing I'll add is whenever you brought up the slide earlier about the, more people looking at you, this is a good investment. It's $165 and you will get more recruiters looking at you, and likely that will mean a potential better job opportunities in the future. This will pay back. This will pay you back at some point. So even if you have to pay for it, $165 is worth it whenever, your salary shoots up a couple of grand as well. So.
Absolutely.
Thank
I was
you.
gonna say too, I work in a technical role for a non-technical company. So it's important, like, when the budget process comes up, and to make sure that, you talk with your leadership about putting this into the budgeting process. So like I tried to get MBAS in there, before COVID, and just to make sure that I could attend events like that as well. So.
Okay.
That is an excellent point. Planning for sure. Okay, so we're getting short on time. I don't want to cut this conversation off, but I do have just one more slide that may interest you guys to go through. And then, I'll pass it back over and we'll open up the floor. But the one other thing I wanted to mention here is just like, what is this exam? So we've talked about what it covers. We've talked about, why you want it and what exam you should take, but like, what is this thing? So the exam is 58 questions. You have 3 hours to do it. There are 2 different ways that you can take the exam. You can take it online in your home, or you can take it in a testing center. There are benefits and drawbacks to each. And a passing score is a 70%. You will receive your score the minute you click submit. So you know right away whether or not that 3 hours was worth it or not. One just quick, well, let's talk through the question types first. There are a number of different types of questions on the exam, which is nice. I have certain ones that I prefer more than others. There are multiple choice questions. There are sequence questions where you order things, which would come first, second, third. There are drag and drop where you move the little options around on the screen. There are fill in the blank. There are multi-select questions. And then there are case studies. And in the case studies, they will present a business use case. And then there are like 4 different questions that are based off of that use case. I personally find those to be the most difficult, but I just wanted to mention what types of questions there were. And I want to mention that there are not any hands-on labs for this test. For some certifications, there are hands-on labs, but there are not for this DA 100. So if you think about, okay, like if they're going to ask me a question about DAX, what's that going to be? Maybe it's multiple choice. Maybe it's fill in the blank. Maybe it's where you drag the little snippets of the DAX formula into where they go in the code. So I wanted to mention those are the question types. And then finally, the last thing I want to talk about is about taking the exam is setting yourself up for success. If you take the exam where you are remote, you're in your own home, there is a proctor, the requirements are really strict. I have recently taken an exam in this office and I had to cover my window and cover my bookshelves with sheets. You can't have anything on your desk. It's very, very strict. If you have the opportunity to go to a testing center, you do get a little whiteboard that you can write on, which I think is a really great thing to have. It's still, of course, very strict, but you then don't have the stress of logging on and interfacing with the proctor and all of that. So I think there are pros and cons to both. But I did just want to mention there are 2 different ways to take the exam. This is the format. And I can tell you, when you look at this, you may think, or I definitely thought this, 58 questions, that is not going to take me 3 hours. And it took me every last minute of the time. So just be prepared for that long exam. And I think you're set up to succeed as long as you know what you're getting yourself into. Does anyone else have thoughts on, taking the exam at home versus a testing center? Is there anything that you think people really, really need to know?
Yeah, I took mine at home, but luckily my brother was moving And so I used his empty apartment, but there was still a printer on the desk next to me. And they made me take my computer, I had to show them that the printer was unplugged, or they said that it couldn't be plugged in, there couldn't be any paper or something to that effect. But since he was moving, right, I just showed it was unplugged. Like you said, it was very strict. You have to be in the camera frame the entire time. And I've heard other people say, you know, like they're in a room and their kids come running through, and that disqualified them, you know, because they don't know the technology they use just picks up a voice and they have to either go back, review it or something, right? And it's grounds for being DQ'd. I did put 2 links out in the chat as well, which relates to what you were just talking about. I suggest you go through Microsoft. They got an FAQ that talks about, you know, frequently asked questions about all their exams. And then the other one is about the exam format and question types. And it even shows some examples or the videos around them. I agree with you there. Kind of get to know what the format's going to look like, so it's not the first time you're seeing it. So the drag and drop that Shannon mentioned, they show you on a video what that looks like. And I know when I took it, and others I've talked to, they still have a case study part of it, I believe. So you're reading a case study, and then you're answering questions off of that case study. And then once you're done with that part, I think it even talks about this in the FAQ. When you're done with the case study and you move on, you can't go back to those questions, right? So you could bookmark questions during that to look at, to re-review, but you can't, if you move to the next section, you're done with that. So that's all I got to add.
Thank you. That's all super helpful. I mean, you know, when you initially think, okay, I'm going to sign up, I'm going to take this exam, I'm going to test my knowledge. It's like, okay, yeah, I can do this. And then you start thinking about, okay, I have to be in an empty room. I can't, you know, I can't read the questions loud. I can't write anything down. I can't this, I can't that. It can become really stressful. But I would definitely recommend take a look at those links that Kevin dropped in the chat. Take a look at the blogs that are out. And then Alex just mentioned in the chat the Enterprise Skills Initiative, and we have not talked about it yet. So I can talk about it. I'm going to pull up this link that Alex just dropped in the chat. So there is an initiative that Microsoft has launched, and I will ask other folks at Microsoft to jump in on this because I think I know about it, but I'm sure I don't know as much as you do. But within the Enterprise Skilling Initiative, Microsoft has committed to help people acquire these skills. And Microsoft is actually providing trainers in some cases to work with companies to walk folks through the exams and then help them take and pass the exams. And actually, I think there is someone on the line who has recently gone through one of those courses. So maybe you would want to speak about that. But Alex, what else did you want to mention about the Enterprise Skills Initiative?
Hopefully this works. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Shannon. So Microsoft has entered into agreements with certain organizations. So with that, there could be free certification exams, free testing, like Shannon kind of talked about. And this is, once again, it's part of our initiative for just this massive target that we want to hit in terms of that 25 million people, getting them ready for the skills for the technology of tomorrow. I say tomorrow, but we all know it's actually here today. So definitely please take advantage of it. I'm going to drop it here in the chat, esi.microsoft.com. Hopefully you can, if you've never seen this before, you can try logging in with your organization's credentials. If not, always feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. Happy to maybe get you in contact with your Microsoft account teams, or just look up and see if maybe your organization is eligible for this partnership. But awesome benefit. Just wanted to call that out here for everyone. Thank you, Shannon.
Yeah, thank you.
And this is not available on an individual basis, just through companies?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, but the one thing that I do think is important to note about the courses that are being provided through the Enterprise Skills Initiative it's the same course content that exists out there on Learn for a lot of the different exams. So, I mean, of course, there's always an added benefit of having an instructor with you that can answer your questions. But what Microsoft is trying to do is to bring down any barriers between people learning this material and getting the certification. So if your organization is not a part of the Enterprise Skills Initiative, a majority of that content is free and available on Learn, and you can do it at your own pace. And those are some of that like course content that I'm talking about is really just within, it's embedded within the Learn modules. And then it's the lab exercises that exist on the virtual machines that are at the ends of the modules.
And then Shannon, not to discourage anyone who isn't getting it for free, but take advantage of the Cloud Skills challenges whenever you see the free exams that are available. If you were affected by COVID-19, or maybe you were, affected not directly but indirectly, they do have the discounts there as well for certificates for $15. I'll drop that resource here in the chat as well. But time it, get the free stuff as much as possible. I think me and Shannon will both tell you we are freebies as much as possible. The DA 100 Learn Path is incredible. The fact that it is free, I point everyone to it and say, use this. I mean, other study guides are great if you want to pay for them, but I've got other things I want to spend money on. So my cats. Awesome. Thank you, Shannon.
Yeah, and I'm with you. My background is in nonprofits. So, anything that I can get for free, I absolutely will. Alrighty, so the very final piece of the puzzle, I know I said I would stop talking 15 minutes ago, but I want to bring us just to this final slide, and this does not affect us quite yet, but Microsoft is making it, speaking of free, Microsoft is making it completely free to renew your certification. So right now, the role-based certifications, they used to be valid for 2 years, and that is changing. They are valid now only for 1 year. And then you will be able to renew them on the Microsoft Learn platform. So when you do your renewal, you're not going to have to go to a testing center or do the kind of high stress computer test at home. You will be able to do it right through the Learn platform. And this is being rolled out slowly. It does not affect any of the data platform exams yet. But once those start to roll out, I will be very vocal about it because I think this is an incredible initiative. It's no cost and it helps you stay fresh on your skills because these exams are updated monthly. And that, my friends, is all I have prepared to discuss. But I would just love to, continue the conversation. I'm going to pass it back over to Kevin and Michelle.
Yeah, thank you so much. That was wonderful. And thanks for everybody that participated in the conversation. Like Shannon said, after this, we don't have any really strict agenda. So, if you have questions about certification, I'll keep the recording on in case there's ones that are about that subject, and we'll keep that recording. If not, what we'll do is we'll stop the recording and then we'll go into our other stuff where we kind of open it up for any type of Q&A. So any questions for Shannon, or as you heard, there's Alex on here. He's also with Microsoft. Any questions about certification? And yes, I'll make the recording available once I have that.
Hi, this is Shruti, and I have a question. Like, I am from a non-technical background. Basically, I'm from finance, and when I joined my current organization, due to the change in so I was put in a kind of data analyst role, and so my role is right now is more towards like Power BI reporting. So it's more of a reporting analyst role. So it was a huge change for me to move on from like finance to Power BI. I did started learning on my own and through various platforms which you guys have been taking up. So so my question shot is, what is the best exam to take for a non-data? Like, I don't know SQL. Basically I just know Excel. That's it. And right now I'm working on Power BI mostly.
So I wouldn't say that you just know Excel. I think knowing Excel, and especially to the level that a financial analyst knows Excel, you are awesome. You know things. So the main thing I think that it sounds to me like might be next for you would be this Power BI exam. It sounds like you're doing a lot of reporting right now, but I don't know. I'd love to hear from other folks. The one thing that really comes to mind for me is currently there is no Excel exam that incorporates Power Query and Power Pivot. So
Okay.
you're not going to get that level of, you know, the similar things that you see in Power BI. You won't see that in a current Excel exam, although there is an Excel exam that exists.
Okay. So more so another thing is like now I'm really starting to like the data kind of role, and probably I want to move towards data kind of role, data analyst kind of role, no more financial stuff. Like I've done it a lot now. So I'm liking this new learning which I'm going through. So I want to continue on it.
Yeah, to me, I think the data analyst exam sounds like the perfect progression, but I'd love to hear what other people have to say.
I'd like to say congratulations on moving away from finance into the world of data.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I feel good too.
Yeah,
I
agree with
mean, I think
Shannon.
if you want to move into a data analyst role, then I would follow the data analyst. Shannon, did you point out the paths that they have? Because they do have like career paths within that learn site, and you can kind of pick a career that you're interested in, and it will kind of guide you through the courses that you should take.
Okay.
I've seen it in a PowerPoint. My company sent it out to me, and I know it's available on the Learn site. I just I don't have a bookmark. Let me see if I have a bookmark.
Sorry.
Okay, the Learn site.
I was just going to ask if they have this going the other way, where you take the test and then they tell you which career you should take.
Okay, so by learn you mean okay, this one.
Yeah, so it's just learn.microsoft.com. You will have to sign in in order to, you know, keep track of everything you've done and stuff. But
okay.
Yeah, and I'm going to search for that career path. I'm sure it's in here somewhere. But this is the funny thing. Like I work for Microsoft now, and that's the first I've heard of it. So there's tons of resources that, you know, there's too many to keep track of, but I'm going to look for that because I want to know about it.
Okay. Yep. Sounds good. Thank you.
Of course. I hope that helps.
Yeah, definitely.
And keep coming over to the DFW user group, and we'll keep guiding you along in Power BI.
Yes, my lunchtime. That's what 1 p.m.
Are you on our lunch? Good.
Yeah, the Thursday, every Thursday, 1 p.m. I'm there.
Good.
Yeah. Great.
Any other questions?
Can we use the virtual office space behind Kevin to do an exam?
Yes, it is secure.
Hey, Shannon, look for ESI Azure Training Journey.
On it. Sorry if I'm slam typing. My mic is right next to my keyboard.
It's not too bad.
Because I mean, they have a pretty comprehensive Visio that goes through start here and then work your way through, and it has courses, and I just have it as a file, but I know that I found it on their site as well.
Here it is. Got it. Okay, I'm going to drop this link into the chat and let me just share my screen quickly. Oh, hold please. Okay, whatever this is, it's trying to make me sign up for it. Let me share my screen quickly.
I'll download it and yep, that's it.
Okay, so there is a document that I'm learning about today. Thank you so much. And it looks like in here, it takes you through the journey by role. So if you're an IT pro, a dev, or a data and AI pro, and that's us, data and AI pros. And it's all fuzzy because I haven't signed up for it to download it, but here it is.
If I
And
can, if I can download this, I'll share the link out. If I can share files here. If not, I'll put it in Slack, Kevin.
Okay.
Thank you for that.
Any other questions? All right, I'm going to stop the recording.